Imagine a ruthless CEO, laser-focused on his empire, suddenly halting his world for a stranger, a tiny girl collapsing on a crowded street. But what if saving her unlocks a secret buried in his past? One that could shatter his perfect life, or heal his broken heart? Stick around for a twist that'll leave you in tears. Before we dive in today's story, please tell me, where are you watching me from, and what's the time there right now? In the pulsing heart of downtown Chicago, where skyscrapers cast long shadows over frenetic streets, Liam Hargrove moved like a force of nature, his sharp blue tailored suit a beacon of power at 34 years old. His piercing blue eyes scanned emails on his phone, brokering a multi-million-dollar deal for Vertex Tech, his empire built on ambition and unyielding control. Handsome, with a chiseled jaw that turned heads, Liam was untouchable. A man who thrived on the chaos of boardrooms, not the chaos of life. Horns blared, and pedestrians jostled past, their faces a blur he barely registered. His world was numbers, deadlines, and victories. Emotions were a weakness he'd buried long ago, orphaned by parents who left him to claw his way up alone. Yet, amid the urban din, a small figure caught his eye. A 6-year-old girl, Ella Monroe, her golden hair shimmering like a halo in the midday sun. Her blue eyes, wide with wonder, sparkled as she clutched a worn teddy bear, its stuffing peeking through frayed seams. She stood on the cracked sidewalk, a fragile contrast to the city's rush, her faded pink dress fluttering in the breeze. Liam's stride faltered. Something about her tugged at a forgotten corner of his heart. Was it her delicate frame, so out of place among the towering suits? Or the way her tiny hand gripped the bear, as if it were her only anchor? He shook his head, dismissing the pang. Focus, Liam, the deal's at stake. But then Ella's knees buckled, her eyes rolling back as she collapsed in a heap, golden curls splaying across the pavement like spilled sunlight. Gasps erupted from the crowd, phones raised to capture rather than help. "Someone do something!" a woman shouted, but the throng only shuffled, paralyzed by indecision. Liam's phone buzzed, his COO demanding an update, but his feet moved before his mind caught up. He pushed through the onlookers, heart pounding inexplicably, as if drawn by an invisible thread. Kneeling beside her, he saw her chest rise faintly, her pale cheeks stark against the dirty ground. "Hey kid, wake up," he said, his voice softer than he'd heard it in years, a tremor betraying his calm facade. Her eyelids didn't flutter. Her small hand lay limp, the teddy bear inches away, its faded tag glinting. "To my sunshine, from Daddy." Liam's breath hitched. Why did that hit so hard? He scooped her up, her weight barely registering, and scanned the crowd for help. "Ambulance," he barked, but traffic choked the streets, sirens a distant wail. The crowd's murmurs grew, some praised his quick action, others whispered about publicity stunts. Liam ignored them, his blue eyes locked on Ella's fragile face, her golden hair brushing his arm. A memory flickered. His own childhood, alone, no one to save him. Was this why he couldn't walk away? He hailed a cab with a shout that silenced the street, sliding in with Ella cradled close. "Hospital now," he ordered, his voice cutting through the driver's hesitation. As the cab lurched forward, Liam glanced at the teddy bear in his hand, its tag a haunting clue. His deal, his empire, his carefully guarded life, all faded. Something about this girl, her vulnerability, her uncanny familiarity, cracked the armor he'd worn for decades. Why did holding her feel like holding a piece of himself? What was it about Ella Monroe that made his heart scream she wasn't just a stranger? The cab tore through Chicago's gridlocked streets, tires screeching as Liam Hargrove clutched 6-year-old Ella Monroe, her frail body nestled against his chest, her golden hair damp with sweat. The city blurred outside, flashes of neon signs and honking horns. But inside, time slowed. Each shallow breath Ella took a fragile thread tying Liam to a purpose he couldn't name. Her blue eyes, closed now, had seared into him. On that sidewalk, stirring a restless ache he hadn't felt since he was a boy, abandoned and alone. "Faster," he urged the driver, his voice sharp but laced with a desperation that startled him. The driver, a grizzled man with weary eyes, glanced back, muttering about traffic, but Liam's glare silenced him. Ella's tiny hand twitched in his, her fingers curling weakly around his thumb, and his heart lurched. Why did this feel so personal? The teddy bear, now tucked in his lap, stared up with its faded button eyes, the tag's words, "To my sunshine, from Daddy," burning in his mind like a riddle. He brushed a golden curl from her face, her skin clammy under his touch, and whispered, "Hang on, kid. You're gonna be okay." Was he reassuring her or himself? The cab swerved, narrowly missing a truck, and Liam tightened his hold, shielding her instinctively. Outside, strangers gawked from sidewalks, their faces a haze of curiosity and pity. But Liam's world had shrunk to this girl, her faint pulse a drumbeat against his own racing heart. His phone vibrated incessantly, his COO no doubt furious about the ignored merger. But Liam didn't care. For the first time his empire felt like a hollow throne. Memories crept in, nights spent hungry as a child, wishing for someone to care. Was this his chance to be that someone? The hospital loomed ahead, its red emergency sign a beacon of hope and dread. Liam's mind raced. Why hadn't anyone claimed her? Where was her family? The driver slammed the brakes, and Liam leapt out, Ella in his arms, her weight as light as a promise he didn't know he'd made. Nurses rushed forward as he burst through the ER doors, shouting, "She collapsed! Help her!" Their hands moved swiftly, taking her to a stretcher, monitors beeping as they checked her vitals. Liam stood frozen, his suit rumpled, hands trembling as he handed over the teddy bear to a nurse. "Don't lose this," he said, voice thick, as if it were more than a toy, a lifeline. The nurse's eyes softened, sensing his urgency, and promised to keep it close. As Ella disappeared behind swinging doors, Liam's chest tightened with a grief he couldn't place. He paced the sterile hall, the antiseptic smell sharp, grounding him in this surreal moment. Strangers in the waiting room whispered. Some called him a hero, others wondered if he was chasing fame. He ignored them, his blue eyes fixed on the doors, haunted by the tag's words. "Daddy," it had said. But whose? A fleeting thought struck. Could she be connected to him? He pushed it away, absurd, yet it lingered like a shadow. His phone buzzed again, but he silenced it, sinking into a plastic chair, the teddy bear's absence in his hands a strange void. He'd saved her, but for what? To hand her off and walk away? The thought felt wrong, like betraying something sacred. Ella's face, those blue eyes, that golden hair, felt like a mirror to a part of him he'd buried. He leaned forward, elbows on knees, and stared at the floor, the weight of her trust pressing on him. What was it about this girl that made him feel like he was running toward something bigger than himself? In the antiseptic chill of the hospital waiting room, Liam Hargrove sat rigid, his once pristine blue suit now crumpled, a testament to the chaos that had derailed his meticulously ordered life as Vertex Tech's CEO. His blue eyes, usually steely with resolve, flickered with unease, locked on the ER doors where 6-year-old Ella Monroe had been whisked away, her fragile condition a weight he couldn't shake. The fluorescent lights buzzed, casting stark shadows across the linoleum, while the distant beep of monitors pulsed like a heartbeat in the sterile air. His phone, silenced in his pocket, vibrated with urgent messages, his board demanding updates on the stalled merger. But Liam's world had narrowed to this moment, to the girl whose golden hair and faint breaths haunted him. He ran a hand through his dark hair, the gesture betraying a vulnerability he'd ride since his orphaned childhood, when no one came to save him from hunger or loneliness. Why did Ella's collapse feel like a call he couldn't ignore? The waiting room buzzed with restless life. A young mother hushed her fussy toddler, her eyes red from crying. An old man clutched a rosary, lips moving in silent prayer. Their shared anxiety mirrored Liam's, though his was sharper, unexplained. He shifted in the hard plastic chair, its creak loud in the quiet, and stared at his hands, still warm from holding Ella's small frame. The memory of her limp hand in his stirred a protective instinct he hadn't known he possessed. A nurse approached, her sneakers squeaking, her clipboard a barrier between them. "You're with the little girl?" she asked, her tone soft but clinical. Liam nodded, throat tight, unable to articulate why he stayed. "She's stable now," the nurse said, her eyes scanning him curiously. "Dehydrated, likely malnourished. Do you know her?" Liam shook his head, the admission heavy. "Found her on the street," he said, voice low, almost ashamed. The nurse handed him Ella's teddy bear, its worn fur soft, the tag. "To my sunshine from Daddy," glinting under the harsh light. Liam's fingers traced the words, a strange pang twisting his chest. Who was this Daddy? Why did the bear feel like a relic from a life he didn't know? The nurse's voice softened. "She's been asking for her mommy, but no one's come for her." The words struck Liam like a blow. Ella was alone, just as he'd been. His mind flashed to nights spent in foster homes, wishing for a family that never materialized. He stood, pacing the small space, the antiseptic smell sharp in his nose, grounding him in this surreal limbo. The waiting room's clock ticked relentlessly, each second stretching his nerves taut. A janitor pushed a mop nearby, his humming a soft counterpoint to the tension, and Liam envied his ease. He'd built an empire on control, yet here, he was adrift, tethered to a child he didn't know. The teddy bear's tag nagged at him, its words a puzzle that felt personal, though he couldn't say why. A teenager in the corner scrolled her phone, oblivious to the drama, while a couple whispered about hospital bills, their voices strained. Liam's gaze returned to the ER doors, his heart thudding with a mix of dread and hope. What was happening behind those doors? Was Ella scared? The thought of her small voice calling for a mother who wasn't there clawed at him. He sank back into the chair, the bear in his lap, its faded eyes seeming to judge his inaction. He'd saved her, but now what? Could he walk away, back to his penthouse and deals, leaving her to an unknown fate? The idea felt wrong, like abandoning a part of himself. His phone buzzed again, his COO no doubt furious. But Liam ignored it, his focus on the doors. A doctor emerged, her white coat crisp, her face a mask of professionalism. "She's awake," she said, gesturing for him to follow. Liam rose, legs unsteady, the teddy bear clutched like a talisman. What would he find in that room? Why did Ella's existence feel like a key to a lock he'd forgotten? His pulse raced as he stepped forward, each footfall echoing with a question he wasn't ready to answer. Liam Hargrove's polished shoes echoed on the hospital's linoleum as he followed the doctor through the ER doors, his heart pounding like a drum in his chest, the worn teddy bear clutched tightly in his hand, its cryptic tag, "To my sunshine from Daddy," burning in his mind like an unsolved mystery. The sterile corridor stretched endlessly, each step amplifying the weight of the moment, his blue eyes darting to the flickering overhead lights that cast stark shadows on the pale walls. Ella Monroe, the 6-year-old with golden hair who'd collapsed in his world, was awake, but the doctor's measured tone hinted at something unspoken, stirring a restless chasm in Liam's gut. He'd built an empire at 34, commanding boardrooms with a glance, yet here, he felt like a boy again, powerless and yearning for answers. The doctor paused outside a curtained room, her clipboard a shield, and turned to him, her eyes softening. "She's stable, but she's been through a lot," she said, her voice low. "We found something in her pocket, a locket. You should see it." Liam's breath caught as she handed him a small tarnished heart-shaped pendant, its surface scratched but warm from Ella's touch. He pried it open, revealing a faded photo of a young woman cradling a baby, both with striking blue eyes that mirrored his own. His knees weakened, the woman's face, soft, radiant with a smile that haunted him, felt like a ghost from a life he'd buried. Was it someone he'd known? The thought was absurd, yet it gripped him, a whisper of a past he couldn't place. The doctor's gaze lingered, as if sensing his turmoil. "She's asking for her mommy, but no one's come," she added, her words slicing through Liam's defenses. He nodded, unable to speak, his throat tight with a grief he didn't understand. Beyond the curtain, Ella's small voice murmured, a fragile sound that pulled him like a tide. He slipped the locket into his pocket, its weight heavy with questions, and pushed through the curtain, the air shifting to the soft beep of monitors. The room was dim, a single lamp casting a warm glow over Ella's tiny form in the bed, her golden curls fanned across the pillow, her cheeks still pale but flushed with life. She clutched a hospital blanket, her teddy bear now resting beside her, and Liam's heart twisted. She looked so small, so alone. He stood frozen, the locket's image burning in his mind, stirring memories of a summer 8 years ago, a fleeting connection he'd dismissed in his climb to power. Had he known her mother? The question gnawed, but he pushed it aside, focusing on the girl before him. "You're awake," he said softly, his voice cracking as he stepped closer, the teddy bear trembling in his grip. Ella's eyes fluttered, not yet meeting his, and he wondered what she saw in this stranger who'd saved her. The doctor lingered by the door, her presence a quiet anchor, but Liam felt adrift, caught between his ordered life and this inexplicable pull. His phone, still silent, buzzed faintly in his pocket. His COO, his board, his empire demanding him back, but it felt like a distant echo. The waiting room's chaos faded, replaced by the intimate hush of this room, where Ella's small breaths were the only rhythm that mattered. He sat in a chair beside her, the plastic creaking under his weight, and studied her face, searching for clues in her delicate features. The locket's photo haunted him, those blue eyes, that smile. Why did they feel like a memory he'd locked away? He'd spent years building walls, shielding himself from pain, but Ella's vulnerability cracked them open. A nurse bustled in, checking Ella's IV, her movements brisk yet kind, and Liam envied her ease, her purpose. He was a stranger here, yet he couldn't leave, tethered by a locket and a tag that hinted at a truth he wasn't ready to face. The doctor's earlier words echoed, "Been through a lot," and Liam wondered what hardships Ella had endured, alone in a world that hadn't been kind. His own childhood flashed, cold foster homes, empty promises, and he clenched the teddy bear tighter, its tag a taunt. Who was Daddy? Why did it feel like a call to him? As Ella stirred, murmuring for her mommy, Liam's chest ached with a longing to protect her, to be more than the man who'd just happened by. The curtains swayed, and the doctor's voice broke his thoughts. "You can talk to her soon, but go slow." Liam nodded, his gaze fixed on Ella, the locket's weight a silent promise that this moment was only the beginning of something he couldn't yet name. Liam Hargrove stood at the threshold of Ella Monroe's hospital room, the curtain's soft sway behind him, a whisper of the world he'd left outside, his heart a tangled knot of hope and dread as he clutched the teddy bear, its tag, "To my sunshine, from Daddy." A silent accusation in his trembling hand. The dim glow of the lamp bathed 6-year-old Ella in a fragile light, her golden curls framing a face that held an innocence that pierced him, her small form stirring beneath the hospital blanket. His blue eyes, usually so composed in the cutthroat world of Vertex Tech, softened as he took a hesitant step forward, the locket in his pocket a heavy enigma, its photo of a woman and baby tugging at memories he couldn't grasp. The doctor's words, "Go slow," echoed, grounding him as he eased into the chair beside Ella's bed, its creak a stark sound in the quiet hum of monitors. Ella's eyelids fluttered, her blue eyes opening to meet his, wide with a mix of curiosity and wariness, like a fawn assessing a stranger. "Hi," Liam said, his voice barely above a whisper, raw with an emotion he hadn't felt in years. "I'm Liam. I brought you here." Ella's lips parted, her voice faint but clear. "You're the man from the street?" He nodded, a lump rising in his throat as her gaze held his, searching for something, trust perhaps, or safety. He set the teddy bear beside her, its worn fur a bridge between them, and her small fingers reached for it, clutching it close. "Thank you," she murmured, her voice a melody that stirred a protective ache in his chest. Liam's mind swirled with questions. Where was her family, her mother? But he held them back, sensing her fragility. "Do you like stories?" he asked, desperate to keep her talking, to anchor her to this moment. Ella nodded, a shy smile breaking through, and he fumbled for his phone, pulling up a fairy tale about a brave princess, his voice unsteady as he read. Her giggles, soft and fleeting, filled the room like sunlight, melting the walls he'd built around his heart. He'd been alone since childhood, forging an empire to escape the pain of abandonment, but Ella's laughter cracked that armor, exposing a longing he'd buried. "You're funny," she said, her eyes bright, and Liam's heart swelled, a warmth spreading he hadn't known he could feel. He glanced at the IV dripping into her arm, a stark reminder of her vulnerability, and a pang of guilt hit. How had she ended up so alone? He wanted to ask about her mother, the locket, but her small yawn stopped him. She was still so weak. Instead, he kept reading, his voice growing steadier, each word a tether to this girl who felt less like a stranger with every passing second. The nurse slipped in, her smile kind as she adjusted Ella's blanket, whispering to Liam, "She's taken to you." He nodded, unsure why that felt like a lifeline. Outside, the hospital's rhythm continued, muted voices, the clatter of a tray, but in this room, time paused, a fragile bubble of connection forming. Ella's eyes drooped, her breathing evening out, and Liam watched, mesmerized by her peace, her trust in him a gift he didn't deserve. His phone buzzed in his pocket, his COO, no doubt raging about the neglected merger, but he ignored it, the weight of his empire meaningless against her small hand clutching the bear. He leaned back, the chair cold against his spine, and studied her face, its delicate lines stirring a restless instinct. Why did she feel so familiar? The locket's image flashed in his mind, those blue eyes, that smile, but he pushed it away, not ready to face what it might mean. The nurse's footsteps faded, leaving him alone with Ella's soft breaths, each one a quiet plea for him to stay. He'd spent years running from closeness, but now, he couldn't imagine leaving her side. The room's stillness wrapped around him, a contrast to the chaos of his life, and he wondered what hardships Ella had faced, what losses had left her calling for a mother who wasn't there. His own past loomed, nights in foster care, dreaming of someone to care, and he vowed silently to be that for her, if only for today. As Ella slept, her face serene, Liam's gaze lingered on the teddy bear, its tag a haunting question. Who had loved her enough to call her sunshine, and why did that love feel like a mirror to his own buried heart? As Ella Monroe's soft breaths filled the quiet hospital room, Liam Hargrove sat motionless, his blue eyes tracing the delicate curve of her sleeping face, the golden curls framing her like a halo under the dim lamp's glow, the teddy bear tucked against her, a silent witness to a mystery that gripped his heart. The locket in his pocket, with its haunting photo of a woman and baby, felt like a lead weight, its inscription, "Forever yours, LH," echoing in his mind, a clue that both terrified and compelled him. The room's stillness was a fragile cocoon, broken only by the faint hum of the IV pump, each drip a reminder of Ella's vulnerability and his inexplicable need to protect her. At 34, Liam had conquered boardrooms, built Vertex Tech into a titan, but this 6-year-old girl, alone and fragile, had unraveled his carefully guarded world. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, the chair creaking softly, and studied the teddy bear's tag. "To my sunshine from Daddy." Its words a taunt that stirred a restless dread. A doctor's shadow crossed the doorway, her white coat a stark silhouette, and Liam's pulse quickened as she beckoned him to the hall. "Mr. Hargrove," she said, her voice low, eyes searching his. "We ran routine tests on Ella, standard for unaccompanied minors. Her blood type is rare, identical to yours from the intake form you filled out." Liam's breath hitched, the words landing like a spark in dry grass. "There's more," she continued, holding up a small evidence bag with the locket. "We tested DNA traces on it, standard procedure for lost kids. It's a match. Ella's your daughter." The floor seemed to tilt beneath him, his mind reeling as fragments of a forgotten summer 8 years ago surged. Sarah, her warm laugh, her blue eyes, a fleeting romance he'd buried under ambition. Had she been pregnant? Had she given Ella up without telling him? His Hest tightened, a storm of guilt and shock crashing through him. He'd been a father for 6 years and never known, his life of penthouses and power a hollow shell, while Ella faced the world alone. The doctor's hand touched his arm, grounding him. "She doesn't know yet," she said softly, "but you need to decide what's next." Liam's gaze drifted back to Ella, sleeping peacefully, unaware of the truth that now shattered his world. His hands shook, the locket's weight a burning reminder of his failure. Sarah's silence, his absence. He'd run from closeness, fearing it would weaken him, but now regret clawed at his core, each missed year with Ella a wound. The hospital's hum, distant voices, the clatter of a cart, faded, leaving only the echo of his own heartbeat. He thought of his own childhood, the ache of abandonment, and realized Ella had lived that pain too. How had she survived, so small, so alone? The doctor waited, her silence a gentle pressure, But Liam couldn't speak, his throat choked with unshed tears. He returned to Ella's bedside, his steps heavy, and sank into the chair, watching her chest rise and fall. The locket's photo flashed in his mind, Sarah holding a baby, Ella with those same blue eyes. He'd loved Sarah, briefly, fiercely, but left her behind, chasing a future that now felt meaningless. His phone, silent in his pocket, held the world he'd built, deals, power, control, but it paled against the truth sleeping before him. Ella was his daughter, a fact that both anchored and unmoored him. He reached out, brushing a curl from her forehead, his fingers trembling with a tenderness he didn't know he possessed. The room's quiet wrapped around them, a fragile truce, but his mind raced with questions. Why had Sarah hidden her? Had she thought him unworthy? The guilt was a vice, squeezing his chest, yet a flicker of hope stirred. She was here, alive, and he'd found he. But could he be the father she needed? The teddy bear's tag seemed to mock him. It's Daddy, a title he hadn't earned. He leaned back, the chair cold against his spine, and stared at Ella, her innocence a mirror to his regrets. The hospital's rhythm pulsed on, but for Liam, time stopped, suspended in the weight of a truth that changed everything. Liam Hargrove lingered at Ella Monroe's bedside, the hospital room's soft light casting a gentle glow on her sleeping face, her golden curls spilling over the pillow as her small chest rose and fell, a quiet rhythm that anchored his unraveling world, the revelation that this 6-year-old was his daughter, a truth confirmed by the DNA match and the locket's haunting photo, burned in his chest, a mix of awe and anguish that left his blue eyes glistening with unshed tears. He sat, the chair's cold metal biting into his back, and watched her, the teddy bear's tag, "To my sunshine from Daddy," now a sacred vow rather than a mystery. The weight of his absence in her life pressed down, each missed year a shard of guilt slicing through the armor of the 34-year-old CEO who'd built Vertex Tech on ruthless ambition. He reached for her hand, his fingers hovering, afraid to wake her, yet craving the connection he'd unknowingly denied her. The hospital's hum, soft footsteps, a distant cough, faded as he leaned closer, whispering, "Ella, I'm your dad. I'm so sorry I wasn't there." His voice broke, a raw confession to a sleeping child who couldn't yet understand the depth of his regret. He pictured Sarah, her blue eyes like Ella's, and the summer they'd shared, a fleeting warmth he'd abandoned for power. Had she known he'd be this man, so unworthy of their daughter? The question stung, but Ella's peaceful face softened the pain, her trust in him a fragile gift. He stood, pacing to the window, the Chicago skyline glittering beyond, a reminder of the empire he'd prioritized over love. His phone buzzed, his bored, furious about his absence, but he let it ring, the sound drowned by the weight of his choice. A nurse entered, her smile kind but cautious, checking Ella's chart. "She's strong," she said, glancing at Liam. "She'll need you now." The words landed like a challenge, and he nodded, throat tight. He returned to Ella's side, sitting again, and spoke softly. "I think I'm your daddy, Ella. I didn't know, but I'm here now." Her eyes fluttered open, blue and searching, and she whispered, "Mommy said my daddy was far away. Is that you?" Liam's heart shattered, tears spilling as he nodded, unable to lie. "Yeah, sweetheart, it's me." She reached out, her small hand finding his, and he clasped it, the warmth flooding him with a love he'd never known. Her question, innocent, piercing, echoed, "Why didn't you come sooner?" He swallowed, his voice trembling. "I didn't know about you, but I should've. I'll never leave again." Her sleepy smile was a lifeline, but doubt gnawed. Could he be the father she deserved, a man who'd traded family for fortune? The room's quiet held them, a fragile bubble, but outside, the world loomed, social workers, custody forms, his board's demands. He thought of his own childhood, alone in foster homes, and vowed Ella would never know that pain. The nurse's pen scratched, a reminder of the bureaucracy waiting, but Liam's focus stayed on Ella's hand in his, so small yet heavy with trust. He brushed a tear from his cheek, the locket in his pocket a silent promise to Sarah's memory. He'd failed her, but not Ella, not anymore. The city's lights flickered beyond, but his world was here, in this room, with a daughter he'd just found. Her question lingered, a mirror to his regrets, and he whispered, "I'm staying, Ella. Forever." Her eyes closed, her grip loosening as sleep reclaimed her, but Liam held on, anchored by a love that felt both new and eternal. With Ella Monroe's small hand still warm in his, Liam Hargrove sat by her hospital bed, the soft glow of dawn creeping through the window, painting the room in hues of hope as the 6-year-old slept, her golden curls a quiet testament to the life he'd vowed to protect. The truth that she was his daughter, a secret unveiled by a locket and a DNA test, had reshaped his world, the weight of his 34-year-old ambition as Vertex Tech's CEO dissolving against the pull of her trust. The Chicago skyline shimmered beyond, a glittering empire he'd once chased, now distant as he held on to this newfound love. He stood, gently tucking the teddy bear beside her, its tag, "To my sunshine, from Daddy," no longer a mystery but a promise he'd keep. Weeks later, Liam had traded boardrooms for a cozy brownstone, its walls alive with Ella's laughter as she danced through rooms he'd filled with color. Crayons, stuffed animals, a small easel for her budding art. He'd stepped back from Vertex, selling shares to fund a foundation for kids like Ella, kids Sarah had loved in shelters. His blue eyes, once sharp with calculation, softened as he watched her draw, her sketches of Daddy and me, a balm to years of loneliness. The hospital's sterile hum was a fading memory, replaced by Ella's giggles as she smeared paint on his nose, her blue eyes sparkling with joy. Liam knelt beside her, his suit swapped for jeans, and joined her, their laughter echoing through the home he'd made theirs. Social workers had granted him custody, a process fraught with scrutiny, but Ella's trust in him had silenced doubts. He cooked pancakes, lumpy, but hers, each morning, her delight at the table a victory sweeter than any deal. His phone, once a lifeline to power, now held photos of her, Ella on a swing, Ella with ice cream on her chin, Ella asleep in his arms. He'd lost Sarah, a love he'd let slip away, but Ella was his second chance, a redemption he hadn't earned but cherished. At night they sat on the brownstone's balcony, the city's hum a soft backdrop as he read her stories, her head against his chest. "Tell me about Mommy," she'd whisper, and Liam would share fragments of Sarah, her kindness, her laugh, piecing togethers, or a love he'd failed to hold. His voice would crack, guilt lingering for the years he'd missed, but Ella's small hand in his healed the cracks. One evening she handed him a drawing, a man and a girl under a bright sun, Daddy and Ella scrawled in crayon. "This is us," she said, her smile a mirror of Sarah's, and Liam's eyes stung, tears falling freely as he hugged her tight. "You're my everything," he whispered, the words a vow to the stars above, to Sarah's memory, to the daughter who'd saved him. The foundation thrived, helping kids Ella called friends, her empathy a legacy of her mother's heart. Liam's old life, penthouse, power, isolation, felt like a stranger's, replaced by school runs and bedtime hugs. He'd been a titan, but now he was a father, a role that filled the hollow spaces he'd ignored. As Ella slept that night, her drawing on the fridge, Liam stood on the balcony, the city's lights a canvas of possibility. He whispered an apology to Sarah, promising to love their daughter enough for both of them. Ella's laughter, her trust, had rewritten his story, trading wealth for warmth, ambition for love. The dawn broke, casting golden light over the brownstone, and Liam smiled, whole at last, a father forever bound to his sunshine.